Hello. Welcome to Matters of Decorum. I'm Scott Corum. This is what matters to me. It is October 24th, and I feel a little remiss. It is the month of Halloween. Halloween is a week away, and I haven't done anything horror-based. And I do like me some horror material in my role-playing games. So let's get a little bit more moody, better, and let's think about this. Concepts for a horror game, something in the background, a story or a setting, a space. I've been craving me my space game, and I've got a space game growing in my head, so let's, I like combining those genres. Big fan of the Alien movies, especially that first one. Oh, God, the quintessential space horror film. Often copied, never duplicated. Let's go existential horror. Some existential horror, something that is just out there. I kind of want to say Lovecraftian, but I'm not going to fool myself and think that I can come up with Lovecraftian out the top of my head. I'm not that good, but space exploration right in the middle. A ship that is not quite faster than light, but uses space warp technology is put together. Near future, 2100 and something. Good 80 years gives them time to sort some stuff out. And it's not going to take us to another star system, but it's going to take us to the edges of our own solar system. And, it's about time we did a little exploration. So we take it out. We visit some of the old favorites. We have a look at the moons of Jupiter. A couple of those look really promising. Maybe Enceladus has some life in that ocean. And we can plant a couple of facilities to maybe find out. We develop enough thermal shielding that we can set down a couple of facilities on Mercury, check out the materials there, the soil, maybe put a little robotic factory that starts putting up satellites around the sun to start capturing a little of that solar energy. Use a portion of what they capture to microwave the rest of it back to a station on the moon or so, someplace safe in case there's any slips with those microwave beams, but we send it back to someplace we can collect it, use it, start getting a little bit more power so that we can do more exploration, do more stuff. Time of plenty shows up. We start to say goodbye to scarcity. And then we go out past Jupiter so we can visit the Kuiper Belt. Want to see where those comets come from and what ice is like when it gets out there, and how dense is that belt really? We got some good theories. We'd like to have a look, see if it's a belt or a sphere, and get our eyes on stuff. Have some real folks with a heart of exploration going out and looking. And there's something above the elliptical. Normally you've got this nice elliptical structure to the solar system. Everything's on roughly the same elliptical planes. How gravity works is, especially since the sun's actually traveling along a different axis while it's rotating with everything else in the Milky Way. And there shouldn't be anything above the elliptical. It looks weird. It's from a distance. It's relatively tiny. It's about 6 kilometers long. It's not as massive as your average asteroid. It's not moving. It's stable relative to the Kuiper Belt. It's moving with the ice chunks that surround the solar system. About as far as you can get from the sun and still call it within the solar system. We've got cheap, free power and a starship or a spaceship that's using warp technology that we can, as long as we got power, we can move, grab a little ice and break some of that down, And the organics in it, nothing really. It doesn't seem toxic, so we've got some supplies. Keep the backup fusion generator going. Let's go have a look at that thing. It shouldn't be where it's at. And as they approach, it starts to look familiar, and they check the scanners again and again. Start talking about someone in maintenance making stupid jokes. This isn't funny. But it's not a joke. It's not a malfunction of the scanners. What they have discovered is a skeleton just off the elliptical plane, rotating stable with the relative to the Kuiper belt, 6 kilometers long. Not just any skeleton, it is recognizably human. There's a 6 kilometer long, from top of the skull to the tip of the toes, 6 kilometers long, almost 3 miles. It has been, there's not a shred of organics outside of it or inside of it. It's just the osseous material. There's no marrow in the bones that they can tell. They're not digging in too deep right now because they've sent messages back. There's a long delay still with, the radio communication still going to take a little while. They haven't worked out any subspace stuff. It's all speed of light transmission when it comes to their communications. And they're not touching this thing without getting some word from the higher ups. And of course, the same stuff comes along. Well, it's some kind of a stupid joke. What are you people pulling out there? That's not funny. Don't do that. Nah, they get the confirmations back and forth. Takes days while this spaceship is hovering. Where are you going to go? You don't want to lose it. You haven't seen it before. It hasn't shown up on any telescopes. You don't want to lose this thing. You hang out next to it. They got plenty of resources. They got plenty of food, lots of storage. Just in case. It's just power to get matter out that far. So you got plenty of stores. And there is a skeleton. Osseous material. It has been bleached white by cosmic radiation. If it's actual bone, normally that wouldn't have lasted out in space all that long. Cosmic radiation's terrible stuff on just about anything that's made out of matter, but it's a lot of osseous material. It's rock at this point in time. It's meters thick in places, and it's just, it might be degrading. The problem is carbon-14 dating only works on Earth, and only works on Earth past a certain point when, there's carbon-14 in the atmosphere. So can't really date this thing yet. They're working on it. Word comes back, have a look, get close, take samples. What has been haunting the astronauts, more than the fact that there's a 6 kilometer long skeleton floating out there in space next to the Kuiper belt, is that it's not in a natural pose. It's not in the position where the way that the joints naturally bend would have distributed themselves over time in zero gravity. They haven't. It hasn't gone to a T pose or something that where the gravitational pull of the things around it and its own mass would have arranged it. There's a position that would have looked like it was floating in a pool at some point in time. Just everything at the most neutral position all the joints can get to. It's not in that pose. Jaw is wide open. The head is canted back. The arms are lifted. Hands with palms outward. It's in a position of fear. The palms outward to defensive pose. The legs pulled up a bit, reactively guarding the midsection, getting those knees up high and the shins and the thighs in the way of anything trying to get to the good stuff in the middle of the torso. Whatever that was, it died in fear, trying to protect itself from something much larger, as so much so that the bones, the joints, there's no cartilage, there's no ligament or tendon, but the joints froze, the bones fused in that position. The supposition runs amok. The atheist community is really divided because they want to use this to say God is dead. But if that is true, then at one point in time, God was alive, and they need to rethink how they're going to approach this. Theological communities, well, that's obviously not God. Maybe that is Satan's skeleton. This is what happens. And if that is Satan's skeleton, maybe this is an angel of some sort. This is the 2,000 years ago, Satan was defeated with the death of Christ on the cross and his resurrection. And this was where he was cast, no longer to be we still accept that there's a Satan out there doing stuff, and our angel's 6 miles long. No, this is a Nephilim. Obviously, this is what happens when angels and people mate. It's one of the giants. The biologists and folks familiar with anatomy and the physicists and folks get together and, it can't have been something that existed on Earth. A human can't exist at 3 kilometers tall. Even if it was lying down, the structures will not stand, won't function. They don't scale like that. Couldn't breathe. It couldn't have stood on anything. The ground pressure it would have exerted would have driven it into the earth up to its waist, and it would where did it come from? It's hard to work out. There's not enough data, and having established it, it's something that couldn't have existed as it was at that size on Earth. How did it get out here? And the comfortable concept, the most comfort that people can think of is, okay, this is something that started on Earth or around Earth and somehow got out there. Because the alternative is that this is something from someplace else and it got this far. Reruns of Attack on Titan become the most popular thing you can find on TV. What is it? Who was it? And that's where a lot of the focus is. A lot of the focus is, could a human being have gotten this big somehow? Is there anything out there that could have done this? Is there any phenomena we know? This is so far past gigantism, and gigantism usually happens in some form of the bones don't have the same general shape. There's some deformities in there. The proportions don't always work out to the best. And that's a proportional human skeleton. The bones are textbook perfect, almost too perfect, just asymmetrical enough so that it doesn't appear to have been manufactured. There aren't that many warp-capable spaceships out there. Someone didn't build this thing as a skeleton 3 kilometers big. No, that's just not something that someone could have constructed and brought out here without leaving some kind of a trace. That they make sure. Is it a hoax? Actual osseous material? It's in the form that osseous material would have been at, scaled up, which meant that the marrow cells and the bone cells that would have structured it would have had to have been the same proportion. Huge. But details like that, no biologist believes that this is a hoax. So everyone focuses on where'd it come from? What is it? Is it some kind of giant human? And some folks focus on how to get out here. Was it able to propel itself by somehow? Did it have some kind of with that much brain tissue and a cranium that you could post at a sporting event in? Could it had some kind of special mental power that could propel it through space or allow it to sustain itself in a vacuum? Could it hold its breath for years because of the sheer volume of air? Is there enough surface area in lungs that size that it could have drawn sustenance from an atmosphere for that long? A stomach that could have held enough material, the digestion system could have kept it alive for however long it, traveled to where it's at and then just died. And then a smaller portion of the scientific community focuses on another question entirely. What killed it? It could get out to this point in space, and no one's sure if it was out there alive or if it got dragged out there, if this is some kind of a funerary ritual for something, but it died in fear. This is a human skeleton 3 kilometers long. It is huge. It is a life form or the remnants of a life form beyond our comprehension in scale. The head is canted back as it yells, its jaw open, which means when it passed, it was looking up. It has the body language of something that was killed by something much larger than it is. How would I put that in a game? Because am I going any further than that? No, I'm not. Because I don't want to answer any of those questions. I don't want to answer a single one of those questions. I don't want to have those answers in my head when I start this. That is not how this game is played. No, I run a game where the crew of the warp ship, that's a really good group to do this. Or maybe I could, someone's a scientist who is along for the ride, or maybe even back on Earth, waiting anxiously for those messages to come back. And they're out there in a day. I run a couple of sessions of them just exploring. Hey, it's the moons of Jupiter, and you probe Enceladus, and hey, that's awesome. And hey, look, Pluto's not a planet by definition, but it's a planetesimal. You can visit it. It's got enough gravity that you can see it's a big heart on the side. That's adorable. Oh, let's go look at the Kuiper Belt. What the hell is that? I let them find it. I let them find the answers to all the questions that they are equipped to pull up, which is not a lot. I cover basically the information that I covered here. There's not much more than that. Giant skeleton. 0 organic material left. Vacuum, radiation. It could have had meat at one point in time. It would all have been reduced to ash finer than dust by this point in time and gone. What is it? What is it, and what do you do about it? And then I grab myself a fanciful drink, maybe something a little alcoholic. I had a very good alcoholic drink this week. Maybe something like that, a little absinthe in it for a little inspiration. And I let folks conjecture. The uncanny valley has another side. We have a problem with things that are almost too human. As robots or waxworks or stuff, as costumes or CGI, as it approaches looking human, we don't have too much of difficulty with. Okay, that's not human. I don't like that. Oh, that's looking better. That's pretty close. But when it gets just next to too human, there's a dip, and we hate it. There's a visceral reaction. That's not right. It's not human. I don't want to hear the undead, zombies, very things that don't exhibit those signs of life, things that are just wrong. No, the Burger King commercial with the thing with the no, that's wrong. Don't like it. It has to go away. And then you cross over the edge of that valley, and okay, now I'm on the other side of the valley, and everything's human, and I recognizably human, and I'm comfortable with it because it is like me, and has all the signs that is working right, and everything's good. And then you go a little bit further, something that is too human, something that has our qualities, but it is over and above what we are. So just like we may be having a reaction to one of our sentient partners on this planet as we are in the process of evolution, and they did not get along with us, and we have an inbred, deep genetic fear of things that are like that. Maybe there was something a little bit better, something more human than human. You notice that when we talk about Blade Runner or other stories where we have these sentients that are as good as humans and maybe a little bit better, we always hobble them. Limited lifespan or 3 laws to govern their behavior so that we're safe. Because it's something that is more human than us is out there, then we are inferior and obsolete. What if we find something that is so much more than us? Maybe, potentially, what is that? Skeletons in space, especially giant skeletons in space, been one of my big schism things in the back of my head. One of those things where I see that in a conceptual art or a music video or whatnot. Some artist just playing around with anatomy and giving it a space background, and what the hell is that? And there's theological questions that come up because, of course, there are, because that's the nature of our existence. Okay, I'm at this point in time, I got to go through absolutely every other possible explanation before I rely on theology, but it's in the bag. What is that? And those questions, I might not ever have to answer those in the game that I run. Human society might start tearing itself apart. This might become a post-apocalypse game really fast if people don't figure something out. If there's enough fear of what that means. Not that. The skeleton's never going to get to Earth. I mean, I guess they could drag it to Earth. That seems like a really bad idea, don't you think? And it's not capable of traveling. It doesn't move anymore. There's nothing. It's inert. It's inert. Something's keeping it positioned that well, according to the Kuiper belts, more than just inertia, but it's inert. Probably. And so it's not going to come to Earth and start bashing things up. That's a little bit too Saturday morning cartoonish for me. It's not a kaiju. It's that would kind of defeat the purpose of it being more human, of the fact that it perished in fear. That's kind of important. That does 2 things. One, like us, it had the reaction to something bigger than it trying to kill it that we would have. So we can relate to it, which makes it a little bit more terrifying, because something that big and advanced, and it gets scared just like us. And 2, if it starts attacking the Earth, then there's you don't have to ask the questions anymore. Oh, it's a bad guy, kill it. And reducing something like that to, oh, it's big, we gotta get the missiles, or maybe wake up Godzilla, build a giant robot to fight the giant skeleton, and then it's just cartoonish. Yeah. Now, if the presence of that skeleton is going to cause the earth to fall to an apocalypse. It's going to be one that we made because we could not deal with the implications of that thing out in space. And that's if we find one of them. Because humans generally come in at least twos. Someone who has more knowledge about skeletal anatomy than me and come up with some astonishing other bits of information you could pull from it. You could reconstruct the face. You can determine the gender, the sex of it. You can reconstruct the face from the proportions of the skull. Build a model of what if it's conforming to human anatomy. We know how the structures that support muscles, how they change depending on how much muscle mass there is and stuff like that. And we could figure out what the thing looked like before it passed. If in fact, that would be a good step in finding out if it was a hoax. Does it conform to all the rules properly? Is that someone's actual skeleton? Putting this in front of a table full of gamers is gold. Putting anything like this in front of a table full of gamers is gold, because coming at that from all the different walks of life, people who have historical backgrounds and backgrounds in theology and engineering and medicine, people who know stuff about some effects of radiation or X-ray technician, putting this in front of people who can bring a little bit of themselves to this from their daily walk of life. People are good at research and can pull up little bits of information, little facts, stuff that makes it you could use. What would people ask about this, and what questions would there be? And as the game master, I get to sit back and field all that, make stuff up as I go along, and that's a good day for me. But I never answer any of the important questions. I give them details about the skeleton, about what it's made of, and what the proportions are, and maybe make up a face. If and did nothing familiar. A person, probably just some guy, maybe a little androgynous, maybe. But for the most part, it looks like an average human being. No one special, aside from being 3 kilometers tall. Make it average in every single other way. Could have been any of them if they were 3 kilometers tall. What do you do? Well, thanks for following me along in this particular ramble. I wanted to get something out about space skeletons at some point in time. If you liked the video, give me a thumbs up. If you didn't like the video, give me a thumbs down. This time more than ever. I want your thoughts. I want to know what you would start thinking in that situation. If you were in that ship, if you were at a table rolling dice, and this is what I explained, what would you do? What would you think? What would the steps you would take be? What do you think? Do you have any thoughts, conjectures? Because at this point in time, your conjecture about what that is, how it got there, and what it means is every bit as good as mine. I don't know. I don't want to know before I go into this. I'm not sure I want to know at the end of it. I just want to hear the conversation. Any subjects you'd like to hear me cover, things you'd like to hear me talk about, leave me a comment down below. I will love getting your comment, and you'll love leaving me one. If you would like to contribute to the channel in a more substantial manner, I invite you to hit me up my Patreon page, www.patreon.com/ScottCorum. Consider donating. Absolutely anything helps. Allows me to make better videos more often. In the meantime, thank you very much for watching. I'm Scott Corum. This is what has mattered to me. I'll see you next time in the next Matters of Decorum.